Having an old car with a dated head unit means you lack a ton of modern features. Luckily, modernizing your car's radio isn't as difficult as you might think. In today's video, I'll be installing this new ATOTO F7WE unit with a 7-inch HD touchscreen, Bluetooth, Apple Carplay, and much more. This guide will work for any radio in any car, but in this one, I'm installing this in my 1993 Miata. By the end of this video, you'll know how to do the same in your car so you can modernize your tech at home without paying someone else to install a radio. Before we get into it though, let us know down below what car you are upgrading your radio in. To start out, let's go over what you'll need to get this job done. The first and most obvious is a modern head unit of your choice. I'm using an ATOTO F7WE, which I have linked down below with a coupon so you could get it cheaper. I'll get into the features of this radio at the end of this video after we install it. You'll also want a wiring adapter kit. This is a pre-made wiring connector that makes it easy to convert from your car's factory wiring harness to your new radio. Again, I have a store linked down below where you could find these adapters for your car. It makes the installation much easier. To go ahead and actually wire that harness to your new radio's harness, you could use twist-on terminals, which is what I chose, or you could use a soldering iron. And finally, I would recommend a radio adapter kit. This allows you to mount your radio into the dashboard of your car cleanly and effectively without a lot of guesswork. I make kits for Miatas, but there are a lot of kits available for different cars. You also might need a few tools such as screwdrivers or a small trim removal tool or pry tool. To begin swapping out your radio, you'll need to remove the trim that's around your current one in your car. This will vary depending on the make and model of your car. More than likely though, there will be plastic panels that are either screwed in or clipped in. Remove the screws using an appropriate screwdriver and remove the trim using something like a plastic pry tool. Of course, you want to be careful to not damage those panels. I'd recommend finding a YouTube video of your specific car and carefully following that. Once you have all of your trim off that surrounds the radio, you'll be able to see how your radio mounts. On mine, the radio is secured straight to the trim. Sometimes you'll need to disconnect your wiring now, or sometimes you'll need to do it later. Typically, there's a simple wiring harness or two that runs to the radio. To remove it, there's usually a tab that you'll need to locate and press in while gently pulling on the connector. This will make it come free, and now your radio can be fully removed. In some cases, like mine, the radio is secured straight to the trim itself. In most cases though, it'll be held on with a bracket straight to the dashboard. This is a picture of a factory Miata radio bracket, and you'll probably be dealing with something like this. In either case, you'll need to remove what's holding the radio in. And at this point, you could begin preparing your new radio. The first thing that I would recommend doing is wiring up your adapter harness. This will allow you to plug in your aftermarket radio directly into your stock harness. This also makes it so you're not cutting and splicing directly into the car's factory wiring, leaving this installation completely reversible. To do this, you'll need to match up the wires from the aftermarket radio's harness to the adapter harness. In most cases, these will be properly color-coded and clearly labeled. For example, this gray wire with the black stripe is the front right negative wire. You'll need to be careful though, as some of the shades of color might be slightly different. You also want to pay extra attention to see if any of the wires have stripes on them. Make sure that if there is a striped wire on one harness, that you match it up to a striped wire on the other. To actually connect the wires, I'd recommend soldering with heat shrink or doing what I did here, which is using twist-on terminals. These terminals allow for a fairly secure connection while not requiring any special tools or the time and effort that it takes to solder. To use these, simply twist the two wires that you're trying to connect together and twist on the terminal. And just like that, your connection will be made. I will note that in some cases, you may need to strip the plastic sheathing off of the wire. They make special tools for this, but you could also use a razor blade or a knife. The ATOTO unit and the adapter that I have both came with pre-stripped ends, which just required me to pull off the sheathing by hand with no tools. This was super nice. At this point, I would also like to note that not all of the wires will necessarily have to be used with your radio's harness. In my case, there were only 2 speakers, and I didn't need to use all of the extra features that the head unit offered. Because of this, there was a lot that I didn't use. Now you could prepare to mount your new radio. In my case, I used the included side plates that were sent in the ATOTO kit. These are generic adapters that can be used to mount to a variety of radio kits. They simply screwed into place. Next, you'll go ahead and attach your radio to the mounting kit that is specific to your car. In my case, there were simply 4 screws that I had designed to be installed with this radio kit. Depending on your kit though, there may be more or less, and in some cases, you might need to do a bit of custom work to get it to fit. Here's my radio in my adapter kit. Again, once you have this kit, it required no custom work since I designed this specific for this radio and specific to the Miata. Go ahead and plug your connector into your new radio. This should simply push in and lock. Give it a gentle tug to make sure that it's locked in place. Once it was attached to the mounting kit, I went ahead and plugged in the radio to the car's harness, and I got ready to put all of that trim back in place. On my car, there was a separate ground that was not included in the OEM radio harness. I had to splice this ground into the harness, but this isn't necessarily typical. And at this point, you'll also want to plug in any additional accessories like backup cameras, a radio antenna wire in my case, or anything else that's going to need to go in the back of the radio before you put it all together. And speaking of putting it all back together, I would highly recommend testing out your new radio before you do. To do this, simply turn your ignition onto the accessory position. For most cars, this will send power to your radio and you could test it out. In some cases though, your car may need to be fully started. At this point, you should go ahead and ensure that all of the radio functions are working correctly. Check that it turns on, check that the touchscreen works, and try out as many features as possible. In my case, this radio had Bluetooth and CarPlay, so I connected to it this way to test the music. I'd recommend playing something to verify that all of the speakers are working properly. This confirms that all of your wiring was done correctly. Once you're happy with that and everything works, go ahead and reinstall the trim pieces and the radio into your car. This is typically the reverse process of disassembly. Once you're all set, your car will look modernized even with the radio off. Do a final test with the radio once again to confirm that everything is working perfectly. While I do this with my radio, I'll take this opportunity to show off the ATOTO F7WE unit. Again, I have this unit linked down below with a coupon code so you could save some money on it. This unit is ATOTO's budget unit, but it is packed with features. The first is its HD touchscreen, which I found to be quite responsive, and it does look very nice. The next is its Bluetooth and CarPlay features. With this head unit, you could connect your phone via Bluetooth and play music or take calls. Better yet, since my phone is an iPhone, I can use Apple Carplay with this unit, which means I could use CarPlay and all of its related apps. This includes music apps, maps apps, and more. To me, this is the best feature of this unit, and I absolutely love it. You could also use Android Auto with this unit if you have an Android instead, or you could use a phone mirroring app, but I personally haven't used those since CarPlay does everything I need. With this unit, you could change backgrounds, change backlight colors, and play around with different sound presets. There's also a fader option so you could change where the sound is loudest in your car. This unit offers a ton of personalization options to make it fit your personal style and your needs. A few additional features include a standard AM/FM radio tuning interface, a video in and out for rear view cameras and headrest screens, and much, much more. Finally, if you're still old school and you want to be able to hit that aux cord, you could still do that since this has an aux option. Again, I have this radio and all ATOTO products linked down below with a coupon code. Let us know down below what car you're upgrading your radio in and what radio you're using. Don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and comment any questions that you might have. I hope you stick around for the next one.